Hello and welcome back. Happy Friday, no wait. Flavour Friday on a Monday. Today we are going to be looking at Venice in the upcoming game with the codename Project Caesar, which is of course very exciting because I like economic-oriented stuff. Venice was a massive trade hub. We are going to be exploring the flavor for them. So without further ado, let's get into it. Hello and welcome to one more week to Tinto Flavor. One more week to Tinto Flavor? Are we arriving? You know where we're arriving? Flavor Town. But continuing on, the happy Mondays, some Tuesdays and Fridays, and now I must admit I'm confused. See, here's the problem. Everyone knows that happy salutations for happy days are, as holidays, should be capitalized. Incidentally, it's Memorial Day. And we have here a bit of a problem. See, we had gotten Happy Tuesday and Friday, and everyone knows Happy Tuesday alone, capitalized. Happy Tuesday and Friday, lowercase, because the two capitalizations cancel out each other. But Pavia has thrown us a bit of a curveball here. By making it an uncertain amount of Mondays, we are now left uncertain whether this should be capitalized or not. And I am befuddled, I'm confused, I'm crying, I'm screaming, I'm throwing up, which is not something you want to be doing on a holiday, like this Happy or Flavor Friday on a Monday, and so I'm not sure exactly how we should be handling this. I'm left confused. I don't have the answers, Sway. Anyways, continuing on, in which we take a look at the flavor content of Europa Universalis 5. Now, you can, of course, wishlist Europa Universalis 5 on Steam, but everyone knows that this wishlist isn't really Europa Universalis, is it? I'm not so sure. See, this is not a very reasonable name for a game. And I think, and you know, and I know, and you know that I know, that this is actually an anagram, which of course, it's an anagram for Our Savior's Vulpine. If you know the answer, comment below. So, that's of course what it's really going to be. This mock-up, this thing that they've put up, all this press release stuff, all these advertisement that they're doing, this is just a ruse. It's obviously Our Savior's Vulpine. It's an anagram. Wake up, sheeple. So, today we will take a look at the two most powerful merchant republics of Europe, Venice and Genoa. Starting off with taking a look at Venice, our favorite, the most serene republic of Venice is the most important and powerful of the merchant republics in the Mediterranean Sea. It controls important trade ports and islands in the eastern Mediterranean, which form the Stato del Mar, not Del? And many island territories in north of Italy, which form the Domini di Terra Firma. Nonetheless, the lagoon city cannot lower its guard, as it definitely can't, as new threats arise around it in the east. The once great Byzantine Empire will not easily forget the Fourth Crusade, awkward, and the Venetian involvement in it. And in the west, the superb Republic of Genoa and Crown of Aragon are continuing to expand their influence, conquering more territory and dominating more routes. And at last, the Signoria of Verona have grown to be a noticeable threat to the Domini de Terra Firma. It's difficult to read with sunglasses on, but, you know, that's how it be. What will be the future hold for the most serene republic? Will it fall under the pressure of enemies, or will it rise to become the indisputable ruler of the Mare Nostrum, which is of course our sea, which is better than their sea, by virtue of it being ours. So we do see a little bit of a breakdown for our cultures and religion. We have mostly homogeneous. The 69% nice of our country is going to be Venetian. We have a decent looking ruler with a total stat profile of 193, which is punching above average, and we have Diplo and military in there. I think that probably military and admin are the two best to have. I'm trying to think which cabinet actions overall are the best cabinet actions. And I do think military and admin overall have the best cabinet actions, but okay. This guy's old, so he's not going to be around very long. Anyways, the three subjects of Venice are Candia, Ragusa, and Trieste. As usual, take any 2D UI and 3D art as work in progress. Now, they've done something since the version of the game we played. We get to play a little bit of the game, and so they've done something different. they have made it so that Venice is across the strait. On the version we played, they were connected, and we watched in every single one of our games as Venice got absolutely bodied because people would just walk into Venice and siege it down. And they had a massive navy, but it couldn't do anything. So we watched Hungary, absolutely body Venice. We absolutely bodied Venice, and we watched as we did it. And so I do like this change overall, even though, like, a fidelity towards, like, a map perspective, Venice as an island is nowhere near this large. They could make it 1 pixel, but then clicking it would be hard, which is a different sort of defense. We do see what is kind of our maritime extension of what we have going on here. You may see, as you may have seen in some of the forum posts on Reddit, Venice is now an island. Here you also have a full extension of its Estado de Mar, with all of its subjects, which at the highest zoom levels have their name replaced by that of the Overlord, as happens here with Candia, which is kind of a nice thing, but it's also was kind of confusing the first time we saw it. If you zoom out, your subject's name gets replaced by your own. But we do have the extent of what we got going on here in Venice. Unfortunately, since you don't control a very large landmass, your name doesn't appear very big on the map, which is, a very significant disadvantage when playing a nation when it is not clearly visible on map for 2 reasons. 1, because a bigger name is better, and 2, because if you have difficulty reading because you're wearing sunglasses, it sucks when it's smaller. But continuing on, Venice is a very unique republic, which starts with some unique reforms and privileges at the start of the game. Now, I'm going to give kind of my impression of how strong or weak these things are as we go through this, given, my experience having played. But continuing on, major reform, country can only have 1 major reform, okay. Crown power minus 15%, this is not a good modifier, of course, but it's not the end of the world. It will limit your trade income, but your trade income that goes to the burghers, it's not like dead money. I don't know how valuable it is, but a crown power limits, you will split your trade income between yourself and your estates. And so when you have less crown power, you get a smaller chunk of that pie, and your estates get more. And it's unclear how valuable estate money is to me at this point. And I think it could be all the way from like negative to like 80% valuable. So set policy costs minus 33%. This seems fine enough. I don't think that the overall cost on setting a policy is generally that high. We get a change policy cost minus 10%, trade capacity plus 25%. This is kind of the nut here, and monthly progress towards free trade plus 10 or plus 0.1. Free trade, incidentally, doesn't appear until later, if I recall correctly. It appears in the age of, I can't remember if it appears in the Age of Exploration or the Reformation age, but it does appear a little bit later, and it is going to be a bit of a different, societal value. Overall, I think you want to progress towards free trade if you are going to be a trading nation, and if you want to kind of stop the trading nations from meddling with you, then you would want to become more mercantile, which is the other side of the coin here. We have the Council of 10, which of course is 11% better than the Council of 9, where this is going to be giving noble powers minus 10%, which is kind of an okay modifier. It's not that substantive. It's not going to really dilute out a lot of estate privileges I think you give to the nobles, but it's like not nothing. Stability investment plus 0.02. This is nice. Monthly Republican tradition plus 0.05. And expected cost of court plus a 1%. Incidentally, the expected cost of court, you can use a slider to determine how much you're going to pay in terms of cost of court, and it gives you monthly Republican tradition, if I recall correctly. So this might be a little bit of a wash, and then we're just getting nobles power and stability investment. Overall, probably not that worth the reform slot, but if it's already in, it's like not actively bad. Which this one is, the Zonta, which is just going to give minus 25% crown power in exchange for 10% estate satisfaction and 20% power. Actually, you know what? 10% estate satisfaction is not all that bad. I don't really know if this is bad or not. It's a little bit difficult to tell. I have to get a better feel for how good crown power is in the early game. I thought it wasn't very important, but then they've changed trade so that it scales trade income, and that is probably a pretty big deal. It's probably a pretty big deal for Venice. But continuing on, we have the Avogaddoria de Cobun. which we almost certainly mispronounced. 0 satisfaction, plus 50% power. Efficiency of our cabinet, nice. Administrative efficiency, plus 10%. This might be worth using. Efficiency of cabinet is a pretty nice modifier. But it's not necessarily that hard to come by, so if you already have plus 100%, plus 10% on top of it, relative to where you are already is only like plus 5%, so we have the Libro de Oro. Is this about a library? Is it about a library that's great? Too soon. But that's not the Libro they're talking about, I guess. It contains a list of families that meet the requisites and can claim to belong to the nobility of Venice. Just kind of looking to the side to double check, shout out to the loud car outside, that we in fact do have our mic working. Although the music should drown them out a little. Pop promotion speed, minus 20%. Now, this is obviously a bad modifier. I think pop promotion speed, especially in the opening stages of the game, is really, really an important modifier. So minus 10% on that is a little bit rough. Progress towards aristocracy is also a negative, so I don't think this is worth the 5 happiness and 10% power. The 5 happiness is good enough. I think this is probably a bad sort of privilege to have. And then we have the Libro de Argento, which together with the Libro d'Oro that lists all the noble families of the most serene Republic of Venice. Wow, if we have 2 Libros, can we make a library? The Libro de Argento contains the names of all the originari families, all those who were, while being commoners, descend from the original inhabitants of the lagoon and have gained the right to trade as citizens of Venice and access to jobs in the administration of the Republic. Okay, pop promotion speed, minus 10%, womp womp. Pop migration speed, minus 10%. It's unclear to me how bad this modifier is. I think obviously you prefer more migration speed, but I don't know how good recomping the demographics of your nation are just generally. Administrative efficiency, plus 5%. Monthly progress towards quality, plus 0.1. This is probably okay. I think this is certainly not worth revoking. I don't know... Well, with the satisfaction in mind, it's probably worth putting in. It only gives 5% powers to the burghers as well. The burghers, I imagine, will get very powerful and will maybe cause some issues. It also shows some works of art, some of them sacked from Constantinople, womp womp, in the Fourth Crusade. The 2 icons of the Archangel, St. Mark's Basilica, which of course was not sacked or seized from, Constantinople. Horses of St. Mark, and then we also have the Bucentaur? And the lab car outside, of course. Here's a selection of advances available for Venice. We get the Venetian arsenal available in Age of Traditions. Almost all the texts that are available in Age of Traditions, they tend to already be researched. And we get the unique building, the Venetian arsenal, which... Wait, what? We saw a different version of this that gave 200 monthly sailors, so now I'm a little bit confused. We saw a different screenshot of this somewhere. Okay, well, 25 sailors. For context, a dock will give 20 sailors. The upkeep cost of this building is just a little bit more than a dock. Shipbuilding capacity plus 4 is nice. It's quite a bit of shipbuilding capacity. But I saw someone sharing a screenshot of this with 200 monthly sailors. I was going to comment that this is 10x a dock, but now it's only 125% of a dock. But okay, in either case, the Venetian arsenal will be like a very nice dock to have. And also, if I recall correctly, if you have more harbor capacity, or I forget what it is, it might be harbor capacity, and then you have natural harbors, which gives you like a baseline amount. But if you have more of that, you get a percentage modifier towards sailors. I believe you have more of that in Venice itself, and so these sailors will be modified up more than, on average, all your other locations. So that's going to be something that's nice as well. We get the Venetian thalassocracy, which is going to give trade advantage plus 10%. This is very nice. Trade advantage, not necessarily the easiest modifier to come by in the first 2 ages. It starts to pick up a little bit in the 3rd age, if I recall correctly. But trade advantage will allow you control over a market, and breaking into those thresholds is probably something you're going to be trying to do as Venice, so that you get access to the first trades so you can have the fattest margins. We have the Stato de Mar, which gives trade efficiency 2.5%. That's a lot of trade efficiency. That is an incredibly large amount. This is generally a really hard modifier to come by. It's often, you get it in like 1% intervals. It's just a strictly free money modifier. When you have like 2% extra on something and you are... you have a revenue and an expense on it, 2.5% is actually a lot more than the 2.5% looks like. So, for example, let's say we're making 100 revenue on trades, but we have trade costs of 90. What 2.5% would represent for us is not a 2.5% increase in our income. Since our income is equal to our revenue minus our expenses, our income is actually 10. And because all trade has expenses. And so if you have trade efficiency being applied to that 100, it just makes more revenue, or it gets applied to the revenue. So instead of 100, we would be making 102.5. And so instead of 10 income, we would be getting 12.5 income. And that's a 25% increase, not a 2.5% increase. And your margins start out enormous at game start. But as you build more and more and more trade, your margins tend to get squeezed down lower and lower. And so trade efficiency at game start's not going to be that strong modifier. But as you start to really saturate your trade, it'll get more and more powerful, and it'll allow you to lean into trade for a lot more buildings longer. And so it's quite a strong modifier, I think, in general. Have to see a little bit more on like later on the tree, but it's also available in Age of Renaissance. And a lot of the stronger texts tend to be available in Absolutism or Revolutions in terms of the age, and so that is available in Renaissance as well is going to be really nice. We also have the Venetian Palaces events, and unlocks the Venetian Palaces building. Now, is this in a... This doesn't appear to be a capital-only building. Okay, so because it's not giving benefits if in a capital. It gives cultural tradition 0.25, cultural influence 0.1. This is quite nice because I can't remember how much theaters get. Everyone gets theaters, but the idea is you can build one more building than everyone else can build. It has to be in a town or a city, and there is an additional green check requirement, which we don't know exactly what it is. We might get it down below. 500 is a pretty penny, though, but 500 is a pretty penny. Okay, let's continue through. Or let's read this. Venetian palaces are a status of a symbol of the wealthy, members of the oligarchic nobility, and influential guilds alike. As space is limited in Venice, the residents of the city construct palaces that aim for height instead. These marvelous architectures that attracts people from afar to witness the Venetian culture firsthand. Okay. Actually, is cultural tradition hard to come by? I'm trying to think. That is like the defense value of your culture, and influence is easy to come by. One of these is easier to get than the other, and I forget which. Okay, continuing on though. We have Age of Discovery, Plague Resistance plus 10%. The Magistrato alla Sanita. I don't really know how good Plague Resistance is as a modifier. Intuitively, I think that this is probably a tech you don't pick up, but I could just be wildly misevaluating how valuable Plague Resistance is. You probably want to think of it in terms of, you probably want to figure out, on average, how many of your pops died to disease while excluding the Black Plague, because this is Age of Discovery, the Black Plague's already going to be gone. And then once you have that, you probably want to have a way of converting it into population growth, and then somehow convert this 10% plague resistance in terms of how you think of it in pop growth, in order to properly evaluate it. And we haven't done that sort of math, but that would be how you would do it. Intuitively, I think it's weak. Available in the Age of Reformation, we have galley power 10%, heavy ship power 10%, and that's going to be nice. Probably one that is worth picking up, but notably, there's something that's... So for the way that the trees work, just generally speaking, for technology, is there's a diplo tree, a military tree, an administrative tree, and there are texts that are generally associated with each of those things in the trees. However, there is also going to be a little bit of military stuff in the Diplo tree, a little bit in the administrative tree, such that maybe 10% of military stuff is in each of those trees and 80% is in the mill tree, and then the mill tree has 10% of Diplo stuff and 10% of administrative stuff. So, coming back to mixed naval tactics, I imagine this is not going to be located in the military tree because you have a trading nation and it's going to be located elsewhere. And the location of it especially is going to be quite nice because you will be allowed to focus technologically on being a big trading nation, this type of thing, while simultaneously able to tech into military power in some sort of way, would be my intuitive guess. And so the location of a tech can alone make it better, and I imagine that this will be a little bit better based on location. A few of its flavors events, the Piazzale San Marco, giving us the growing power and wealth of our illustrious republic, call for investments in development of the capital, ensuring that our prosperity is visibly reflected in the grandeur of Venice. Shout out to the sinking city. A proposal has been brought forward to renovate the central square, Piazzale San Marco, transforming it with magnificent arches and marble to showcase the splendor of our maritime empire. Such renovation would enhance the beauty of our city and serve as a testament to our enduring power and cultural prominence. Okay. We don't really get... okay, so we see that we will get this building. We get cultural tradition plus 0.2, which I think is... I'm not sure how valuable this is. That's a lot of monthly dev, though. One of the things I found a little bit dissatisfying about development, just in general, was how, if you really push it, you can hit 100 relatively quickly. And so, while this is a lot of dev, well, maybe it's still worth it, even if you are effectively making this building useless, for like half the game, because you get to 100 dev. Maybe just getting to that dev faster is worth it. This is really quite a lot of development. This is kind of, I think this is roughly doubling how much development you grow like normally, and so that's a pretty big deal, especially depending on the terrain in Venice. If it's a farmland, then that'll be quite good. We get revising the Promissione Ducale, which is going to give, is the oath of office all candidates must swear before becoming the new Doge of Venice. It outlines the duties of the Doge and sets limits on the Doge's power. I don't know if it's Doge or Dodge. Apologies if it's not Doge. Over the years, however, some of the checks have waned a little. If we were to draft a new Promissione Ducale, one that more firmly restates the values and rules of the envisioned for the Doge, it not only would the government be strengthened, but more virtuous candidates for office might step forward as well. That's less corruption. Okay, so we get efficiency of cabinet and administrative efficiency. This seems fine enough. Kind of expensive for a government reform slot, but okay. We get the Tiziano Vesilio, which he stands out as a distinguished painter from the Italian Renaissance. A lot of really good painters from the Italian Renaissance, to be honest. In my mind, I was like, he's not that distinct from those other dudes. And then I realized there's probably thousands of painters, and all these guys are distinct. But he was born in a loud car that was traveling outside in proximity to Venice. Renowned for his adept handling of color and groundbreaking brushwork techniques, as an artist, his artistic journey spans over 7 decades. Throughout his extensive period, he has crafted an extensive array of works and encompassing portraits, mythological narratives, and religious compositions. Notable amongst his portraits, such as Venus of Urbino, is the acclaim that they receive for their profound psychological depth and opulent color schemes. Versilio's impact on the evolution of both Venetian and European art is deeply seated, and his enduring legacy positions him as one of the most foremost painters. What a brilliant man. Now let's take a look at Genoa. Let's. The city of Genoa stands out as the most important commercial port in the western Mediterranean, its republic having expanded its influence overseas through trade and war. After defeating the Republic of Pisa, it gained access to the island of Corsica and established a foothold in Sardinia. However, this might have been a poisonous gift, shout out to the poison pawn, as it may now face the only opposition of its inhabitants, but also that of King Pierre IV the Ceremonias de Barcelona, self-proclaimed sovereign of both islands. Another challenge that may arise from the east, as a network of possessions created the conditions for commercial dominance over the Black Sea, centered around the port in Kaffa, although dangerous neighbors such as Venice, Byzantium, or the Golden Horde might take threat. Relying on our numerous fondaco and wealthy bankers, will Genoa overcome these challenges? Not in our game, where we played Milan and sacked Genoa, but coming into here, we get Ligurian, Corsican, Pontic, Greek, and Piedmontese, and we are mostly Catholic. We do have a big kind of chunk of Orthodoxy in there, so especially if you look to expand kind of in the east, you're probably going to want to have acceptance of heretics, this type of thing. But you do kind of have a far-flung empire, which is generally going to be a problem relative to control for both Venice and Genoa, so I'm not exactly sure how they are looking to resolve that, but we do see, this is, I forget if this is Sardinia or Corsica. The names, no, this isn't Corsica, right? This might be Corsica. I forget the names of the islands specifically. But we do have this land over here, this land, and a little bit here. The mainland plus its Mediterranean possessions. Yeah, so very importantly for both Genoa and Venice, you also have the trade center on your capital here, which is going to be nice, or the market center rather, because having market access is going to make all of your production buildings way more, like the non-RGO buildings, way more efficient. But taking a look, Genoa also starts out with a couple of unique reforms. The Diarchy Republic, which is going to be a major reform, and it is going to give set cabinet member cost minus 10%, replace member cost minus 10%. Really not that great. We get stability decay plus 0.3, already looking not too good, but then trade capacity plus 25%, so probably pretty solid. Monthly progress towards free trade, 0.1, very kind of similar. Kind of don't like what else is going on, but do like the trade capacity. And we get the Campagna Communis, which is going to give nobility estate satisfaction plus 2.5%, burgher estate satisfaction 2.5%, trade maritime advantage plus 20%. This looks strong. This looks strong for a government reform. And also, just wanted to note that, like, early on, it feels like you have 2 government reform slots, and it feels like there's probably 2 good government reforms, and so when you get that 3rd slot, it doesn't feel very good, but if you have a good, unique government reform, my impression was then overall government reforms feel a lot more powerful. This seems solid enough to be used. Since we're not able to have 2 or more rulers for a country in the game, we're portraying the Genoese diarchy by having Galetto Spinola and Raffaello Doria present as characters at start, and the bonuses you see in the reform. Okay, fair enough. We also start with some art. Regionally renowned Palazzo. I said that very... Yeah, okay. Anyways, Lanterna di Genoa and Annales Ionessusis. It is also quite important unique building with the Fondaco, which is going to allow burghers to migrate. This is fine enough. Migration attraction +1. This is pretty strong, especially because you will be able to siphon off people from other countries into, as far as I can tell. Although migration, it seems like they prefer not to go from. The inter-country migration seems to be not as much the preference, but that maybe is just a cultural thing. But if you could siphon off pops from other countries, so much the better for you. Maritime presence 0.02. This is solid enough. Trade advantage +1. That is pretty good considering this is not a unique building. This is not you build one of these buildings, and so you can generate these. And with the triple up like arrows, we can build more than one of these in a location, so we can get a lot of trade advantage in an area. Trade capacity 0.2, but it's mainly about the advantage. I do believe multifunctional warehouse and lodging for foreign merchants where business is conducted and stored before distribution. I do believe this is a building that gets built in foreign lands. I think that this means you have to have above 100 relations with the person, and that you build this in foreign lands, you get a bunch of trade advantage, and then you can control all the most profitable trades. It's much less about the trade capacity as much as locking in the trade advantage. Because if you get trade advantage in, let's say, Egypt, or whatever the name of their trade location is, if you get trade advantage there, then that means your trade capacity that you have in Genoa gets to go first, and you get to trade first in Egypt, right? If you're importing from Egypt to Genoa, and Egypt has the most, they can choose to export to you in Genoa, and they can get the biggest profit from the biggest marginal routes by exporting to you in Genoa. If you have more trade advantage, though, in Egypt, then you get to control the trade, which means you get the best advantages. And also, let's say Venice is importing from Egypt and you're importing from Egypt, and you can't import to the Venetian node unless you have trade capacity there. Well, if you have the trade advantage there, then you get to import to Genoa instead of Venice importing to Venice or the Venetian sort of market and this type of thing. So trade advantage is going to be nice, and you can even arbitrage stuff if it's profitable enough. You have to overcome the cost of doing trade, but let's say you're importing spices from Egypt and then exporting them to Venice. By having the trade advantage, you are able to engage in this arbitrage rather than Venice just being able to import to Venice. But continuing on, and you have some of the unique advances. Genoese banking traditions, which is Age of Traditions, bank interest of -1%. I don't have a really strong handle on how good these are, but I'm sure if you stack more of them, they get a lot stronger, and they're going to be stronger the more of them you have. So it's probably the case that if you have a unique advance for this, then you want to hard lean into banking if you have a bank interest advance that is unique. Or if stacking bank interest is at all good, the nations that get a unique advance for it, you're going to want to lean in on that. We get the manning galleys with slaves, awkward, which unlocks the galley barracks building, which is going to give monthly sailors plus 20. But we have multiple levels here. And early on, you can normally build a wharf and a dock, one each in coastal locations. So the fact that you can build multiple of these, and also you can get, this is actually, Genoa's overall capacity for sailors is maybe like 2 to 3 times the average country's, because normally for both, I don't think we completed the thought, for both wharf and dock, you can only build one level. So you can build one of them per location that's on the coast. And the location also has to be, it has to be a town plus. Although, looking at this a little bit closer, this has to be city plus. That's what the 3 thing is. So it does have to be quite a bit bigger, but being able to build multiple of these, you're probably going to be able to have like double the guys, double the sailors. So Genoa might even be able to field the biggest navy if you pick up a few more coastal provinces. I'm trying to think if anyone, by virtue of just having more territories, is in a better spot, but also here, this is Age of Traditions. Dock is at the bottom of the Age of Renaissance, and so you're going to also have this inflection point way earlier when everyone else only has wharf as their source of sailors. So that's going to be good. And we also get the Genoese galley, which is going to be unlocked in the Age of Traditions. So actually just going to be the guy who stomps the yard in terms of the navy. We don't know exactly how this is we don't know the baseline galley stats well enough to know how much this is deviating or in what way it's deviating, but okay. We also have the Genoese crossbowmen. I assume that this replaces the regular crossbowman tech, but there's an important thing to note. If this is in either the administrative or the diplo tree, this would feel real good. Because you would just do the administrative and diplo stuff and then gain access to a very strong regiment. Because crossbowmen in the Age of Renaissance is like 7 deep in the tree. It's pretty in there. And I think that is probably not as good as handgunners. I don't know if they're worse than handgunners or better than handgunners. Intuitively, I feel like handgunners are better, but I guess I haven't looked at it. But if the Genoese crossbowmen just have a better location on the tree, that's going to be really significant. I'm curious what it is. Like, obviously they're not showing us here, so we don't really know. And we get the 28 Alberghi. I thought that was almost allegory, like Dante. Shout out to the Inferno. But because all Italian words just look the same to me because I'm uncultured. But we do have this government reform, which is going to give... I feel like we've looked at this before, but it's slightly different. Noble estate, a burgher estate, satisfaction equilibrium 2.5%. Pretty solid for a government reform. Monthly Republican tradition 0.05. This is somewhat similar to the Venetian one. I think the Venetian one had downside of stab investment, but also had an additional upside. But very, very similar here. We get the Age of the Genoese, which is going to be available in the Age of Discovery. That's kind of awkward, because this is like saying you peaked in high school, bruh. This is the age of us. It's the Age of Discovery. There's only 5 years for it. But we have another bank interest modifier. Do we really just get 2? Age of Traditions? Bruh. So this might mean that you do this banking game really, really hard as the Genoesians. We get the Genoese Merchant Republic. Here are some Flavour events. Ever since Guglielmo Bloch, this guy, coup d'etat in 1257, the state of Genoa has been a Capitano de Popolo as the head of state. Over time, this office has been split into the Diarchy Republic with the families of Spinola and Doria equally ruling the country. However, this guy has always been a controversial position as many Genoese see the government as an autocracy. Awkward. Shout out to autocracies. By public acclaim in 1337, the rule of the Diarchy might finally come to an end. We can get May the Republic lead us into a new golden age. We gain Republican tradition. We remove the Diarchy, and we become a merchant republic. All right, fair enough. And then here we have trade maintenance minus 25%, trade capacity plus 50%, speed of integration minus 50%. Integration, incidentally, I don't think is throttled by speed. So I think that the positive and negative speed integration is much less important than the relations hit, which I think is generally going to throttle you a little bit more. It's going to take more diplo capacity, but it's kind of whatever. But that 50% trade capacity and minus 25% trade maintenance is quite strong. In the thing we were talking about before, right? In the example where we had 90 trade capacity, right? Or sorry, we had 100 trade revenue and 90 trade expenses, and 2.5% trade efficiency was a 25% increase in income because it was bringing you up to 102.5, and so 10 to 12.5. That entire example, trade maintenance also kind of plays in there, because if we have minus 25%, you know, on that 90. Then that's like minus what, like 20 or so. So you go from a margin of 10 to like a margin of 30. Really, really strong if you've already really saturated the trade, unless I'm misunderstanding something. But if you've already saturated your trade routes such that you're making very small amounts per trade on average, trade maintenance is going to be a stronger modifier. We get the Doge election, is the succession law of the Republic for which the ruler is elected from the elites of the country and rules for a lifetime. However, the Doge can still be ousted should his popularity with the nobles or the burghers drop. Rules for life, allows male, and then we will get a better score if we are more able-bodied and minded. If we are older, and then score for traits, plus 50. Okay. Traits correlated with age, so probably mostly electing old guys. The Rock of Monaco. A pirate haven, the suzerainty of the Rock of Monaco was granted by the Holy Roman Empire Emperor Henry VI to the superb Republic of Genoa in 1191. That's a while ago now. Being later fortified by the Genoesian Ghibellines in 1215. Our internal fighting in the city of Genoa resolved that some of the Guelphs, led by Francesco Grimaldi, took refuge in the rock, seizing control. Although formally, Formerly under the sovereignty of the superb Republic of Genoa, the Grimaldi dynasty has begun to act quite independently, enlarging their holdings and acting as sailors of fortune. We let them continue our business. The rock belongs to us. And then we have the Rock of Monaco, which is a building. Interesting. It's a cultural building. Is this not unique? It says it could be built in a town or a city. I feel like this is a unique one, but it is going to give a little bit of maritime presence, a little bit of, or quite a bit of manpower to own there. 50 is a lot. 50 is a lot, so I think this just has to be a unique building. That's insane if it's not. And sailors to owner plus 100. As we described earlier, plus 20 sailors is what you get from a dock. So getting plus 100, it's like several docks. It's going to be quite a lot. What's the maintenance like this on? Maintenance looks kind of high. So maybe this is a fair maintenance to pay for this type of stuff. Whereas the Venetian arsenal was kind of the same or very similar maintenance cost to a regular dock. But Admiral Andrea Doria. Andrea Doria belonged to a branch of the old De Aria family. He lost his noble parents at an early age and became a soldier of fortune, serving first the Pope and then the French. He became famous as a naval commander, waging war on the Turks and the Barbary pirates. He was behind the rise of the superb Republic of Genoa after the years of occupation by French and imperial forces. He will lead our navy, probably. He refused... Andrea Doria refused several offers to become the Doge of Genoa, but eventually accepted the position of a perpetual censor and exercises significant influence in the councils of the Republic. He is given several palaces and, like many other privileges, for his service to the Republic, and even the title of a liberator et pater patriat. Okay. We have here a government reform. Great and minor councils of Genoa. We see, minus crown power, not exactly what we want, but 2.5% estates satisfaction equilibrium on all the estates, 10% on nobles, 10% on burghers. This looks super worth. We're gonna call it worth here. 12.5% burger estate satisfaction equilibrium, gonna be very nice for us. I forget what bonus they give exactly. I think it's for positive satisfaction. I know it's good. I forget exactly what it is. It's like development speed percentage modifier plus something else. But the estate satisfaction equilibrium is going to effectively be increasing your control by a very slight amount. For every, I think, roughly 40 control? Or is it 30 control? Or, sorry, 40 or 30 satisfaction total, you increase your control by like 10. So this maybe increases your control by a little under 1, which is going to be nice. Incidentally, that increase in control to some degree offsets the crown power, because the more control you have, you get a positive crown power modifier. But yeah, if you have estate satisfaction informs all pop satisfaction, and pop satisfaction has a positive effect on control. Or absence of it has a negative effect, so having it effectively positive. Oh, and last but not least, and related to the Byzantine content, we'll take a look on Friday, shout out to Byzantium, both countries and some unique foreign buildings in Constantinople. We get the Venetian Quarter. See, this plus a thumbs up, thumbs down implies that this is a foreign building that you build in other people's countries. It has to be built in a town or a city. Don't know the other requirement. It adds 1 trade capacity. A trade district of the state of Venice. So this is something that Venice is building in Byzantium. As long as this quarter exists, the Venetian merchants will have significant influence in the affairs of Constantinople. It looks like we can have multiple levels too, so this is not a unique building. And so this is... If I recall correctly, yeah, this is a pretty big deal. If I recall correctly, the generic building that you can build to get trade capacity in someone else's nation only gives you 0.2. Although this is a 500 cost building, so that's actually also quite a lot. So the 0.2 one I think costs 50, maybe it costs 100. If it costs 100, it's like kind of a little bit of a wash, but I can't remember if it's 50 or 100. It might be 100. It's very expensive for this trade capacity relative to owning a location and getting the trade capacity yourself, but the idea is you can get trade capacity without needing to own buildings, so Interesting. We have the Galata. That's a lot of Galata, which is going to be a foreign building. You can see the thumbs up, thumbs down. That means you have to have a certain relation level in order to build it. It's town or city only. And it's also going to give trade capacity. Is this the Genoa one? A trade district of the state of Genoa. As long as this neighborhood exists, the Genoese merchants will have a significant advantage in influence of the affairs of Constantinople. Plus, it's 500 gold. And so it's going to be the same thing for both, but just different names for each. It's going to be quite nice. And this is going to allow you to play uber tall if you want. Because not needing to own locations and being able to extract value from a market is a pretty strong thing. But I think that this is quite a bit less efficient than the fact that this is costing like 10x. A regular marketplace implies to me that owning locations might be better. Like owning a few key cities and just maxing out marketplaces is maybe going to be a little bit stronger. I'm not sure. And much more. I don't know why, every time I read Pavia says that much more a lot. And every time he does, my brain auto-completes one more in. But that's all for today. And tomorrow we will be having a Tinto flavor devoted to Serbia and Georgia. Also remember, you can wishlist Europa Universalis 5. You can wishlist that loud car, but that's not fulfilled by Paradox. You can wishlist it on Steam. It is, of course, available, and it is, of course, Europa Universalis 5, but the real name is, of course, Our Savior's Vulpine, to which, you know, are you feeling foxy? I don't know. Comment below. Please don't. On the foxy bit. But other than that, you know, some nice flavor for Venice and Genoa, ability to play tall, it looks like, have a strong navy, play the trading game. For Genoa specifically, play whatever, to the extent that there is a banking and lending game, taking on other people's loans that have a higher interest rate, and then you taking on a loan yourself to pay for that, and then having the marginal difference between the two interest rates just be free income for you. That is something that seems pretty exciting. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, like, comment, subscribe, do the YouTube algorithm thing, and other than that, have a happy Monday on... Wait, no. Have a happy Friday on... No. Have a Flavor Friday on a Monday.